Some Kind of Happiness, Chapter 14. It is Friday and I am feeling calm. My cousins are staying over for the weekend, and we are making paper bag monster masks in the dining room. When I lose myself, my insides become a storming sea in what is easy to get lost. Even something as simple as breathing feels difficult. But on days like today, the sea is tame and I hardly feel heavy at all. Why can't every day be like that? Grandma brings us a plate of sugar cookies. She's been baking all morning for the clinic volunteers, and we get the last batch. I'm going to take a nap. The friends of the library meeting last night, baking all day today. I'm completely worn out. She touches Kennedy's golden hair. Kennedy, are you all right with the twins? Yes, ma'am, Kennedy chirps. When Grandma kisses her cheek, Kennedy beams. I concentrate hard on cutting my construction paper into a spiky lion's mane for Dex. I want to ask Grandma to kiss my cheek too, but I haven't seen my cousins ask for kisses. Perhaps they have to be earned. A few minutes later, Grandpa comes in. He stands behind Ruth and examines her mask. What is it? He asks. A bear? Ruth puts her hand over her head and growls at Grandpa. No, it's a monster. Needs more fangs, Grandpa suggests. Ruth takes off the mask and examines it. Good idea. I'm off for my drive, Grandpa tells Kennedy. I'll be back in a little while. I nearly jump out of my chair. This could be my chance to ask him about Dad. Can I come? Grandpa raises an eyebrow. With me? Your boring old grandpa? I'm done with my mask. Monster? Bear? I pick it up to show him. Fox. Grandpa nods. Good choice. Come on, then. Grandpa's car smells like leather and air freshener. It's so clean you could eat off the floor mats. I feel fancy sitting beside him in the passenger seat, the polished dashboard in front of me. When he turns on the car stereo, it plays a familiar song. Jimmy Reed! I cry, pointing at the speakers. You like him? I look out the window. I need to calm down and act my age. Yeah, I like him okay. He's one of your grandma's favorites. Your dad's, too. That was a long time ago, though. I don't know what he listens to now. Grandpa starts down the long driveway lined with giant trees. The music plays into silence. I swallow hard. He likes classical music, I say quietly. He listens to it while he writes. He says it helps him think. Oh, what kind of classical music? Beethoven, Mozart, Schubert. Grandpa smiles. Do you know Beethoven's Sixth Symphony? The Pastoral Symphony? I answer in a rush. 8-letter word for about the country. I bite my lip. Why did I say that out loud? I like crossword puzzles too, says Grandpa. Your dad and I used to work on them together when he was little. I can no longer stay calm. We do that! It's a good thing to do, especially when you get older. Keeps the brain sharp. I feel small and huge at the same time, like I could either shrink into a tiny happy ball or balloon up and burst into pieces. I sit straight and still in my seat, but my insides are a wild party. At the end of the driveway, Grandpa changes the music to the Pastoral Symphony and my heart jumps. Where do you think your dad first realized he liked Beethoven? Grandpa pats my hand. I'm glad you're here with me today. I'm in the car with Grandpa. We are talking about Beethoven and crossword puzzles. He is smiling at me. He is smiling at me. He is smiling at me. Grandpa pulls onto the road. It relaxes me. Oh, why do you go on drives every day, I ask? Grandpa pulls onto the road. It relaxes me. It's nice to get out of the house every now and then, don't you think? Yeah. Where do you go? Anywhere with trees. I grip my seat to keep from flying away. You like trees? I love them. Why do you think I bought Hart House? Because of the Everwood? Grandpa laughs. I forgot you kids call it that. How'd you decide on the name? It's really quite nice. I'm good at naming things, I say. And soon I am telling him all about my notebook, my lists, my stories, the different Everwood creatures. I do not tell him about the stories I have written since arriving here. Those are still in progress, and I get the feeling he would not be happy if he knew I had been out to the bone house. Grandpa listens to every word. Then he says, Oh, Finley, you're so like your dad. My heart is a pounding drum. I am? Absolutely. He was always writing stories, too, when he was little. Sometimes he'd write plays, and he and the girls would get dressed up in the most ridiculous clothes. Skirts and scarves and raincoats, whatever they could find. They'd put on plays in the foyer, where those doors open to the living room. I nod, imagining it Beethoven's Violin Soar, Did you and Grandma watch? Every single one. Your grandma made me, even the ones we'd already watched 1,000 times. Your Aunt Bridget always liked to do things over and over until they got it just right. And your grandma would sit and watch each performance like it was the first one every time. She'd clap in all the right places. She was so good about that, Finley. She always has been. Good about what? The family thing. Everyone eats dinner together. Everyone cleans house together. Everyone takes turns telling about their day, and everyone else has to listen, you know? Things like that. Not every family does that, but ours always did. And it was because of her. Grandpa's face is so soft that looking at it is kind of embarrassing, like I'm spying on a secret. When I try to imagine Dad talking about Mom like this, I can't. I scratch the dry spot on my knee over and over. I wasn't always good at being a dad, Grandpa says, but your grandma was always good at being a mom. I think about Grandma at the park, the little boy with the crooked collar in her lap. Was Dad messy when he was little? Grandpa burst out laughing. Oh, goodness, yes. They all were, except for Bridget, of course. Your dad and Stick would always come in from outside with muddy shoes and scraped knees. Everything was an adventure. We're quiet for a while. Grandpa off turns onto a road with woods on one side and fields of crops on the other. I watch the rows of corn flash by. The stalks are still small. By the end of summer, they'll be taller than Dad. Grandpa? Hmm? When you and Dad talk on the phone, what do you say? Grandpa gently taps his thumb against the steering wheel. Well, we talk about you a lot. Your mom, your grandma. He tells me about his classes and about his writing. I tell him about my golf scores and about his sisters and your cousins. I flex and point my bare feet. And Kennedy painted my toenails pink. Grandpa? Yes. Do you love him? Your dad? Yeah. Grandpa sighs. It's a tired, heavy sound. I do, very much. Then why? Why are you just now meeting us? Why does your dad stay away? I nod. My voice catches in my throat. I'm going to tell you something, Finley, Grandpa says, and I want you to listen carefully because it's important. Okay. Your grandma had it hard growing up. Not end of the world terrible, but not much love and not much money. Her parents were always fighting, always spending money on things they shouldn't. Once your grandma had her own family, she decided that this time things would be different. She was going to do whatever she could to make things good for her kids, make the kind of family she always wished she had, and she wasn't going to let anything get in her way. I think about that while the symphony's third movement begins. Did Dad get in the way? She and your dad, they had a disagreement, and they could never settle it. They got madder and madder at each other until your dad got tired of being mad and left. And that was that. I try to imagine being so mad at Mom that I would leave her forever, but I cannot do it. Were you mad at him too? A little, Grandpa admits. Mostly I wanted them to figure out how to make peace, but his voice trails off. The symphony dances on happily, which seems really rude of it. Grandpa? Yes, Finley. Does Grandma hate me like she hates Dad? Grandpa pulls the car over and looks at me. She doesn't hate your dad. She loves him. And she loves you, Finley. She loves you more than she knows how to say. My eyes fill with tears. Then why won't they say sorry and get over it? Sometimes things are too big for sorry. Grandpa wipes my cheeks with a handkerchief embroidered with his swirly initials, WH. But I don't think it'll always be that way. Maybe it's a step. That you being with us, Finley. It's tremendous. It's a baby step. That's what life is, you know, a bunch of baby steps, one after another. And sometimes you fall, but you always get back up, and eventually you get where you're going. And hopefully you have people beside you to help you up when you need it. That's where family comes in. I have many questions left, but they can wait now. Right now I will nod and let Grandpa hug me, and I will think about how he loves my dad after all. Grandpa's shirt is white and wrinkle-free. He smells like laundry and this morning's pancakes. The sunlight makes his face look older than usual, but I like it. I imagine every wrinkle is a year and every year is a good one. Shall we keep going? Grandpa tucks his handkerchief away. There's a farm stand down the way that sells the best strawberries you've ever tasted. Strawberries are my favorite, I tell him. He squeezes my hand. They're your grandma's, too. As we get back onto the road, Grandpa skips the next movement in the symphony, the one where there's a storm, and goes right to the last movement, where the sun comes out and everything sounds like flying. I don't mind. Chapter 15. That night after dinner, we are sitting in the tower shelling pecans when the Bailey boys show up. Dex sees them a split second before I do. Pirates! He yells. I clap my hand over his mouth. The adults absolutely cannot know the Baileys are out here. Gretchen leaps to her feet and raises her stick high. Come any closer and I'll poke your eyes out. No, you won't. I jump down from the tower. We said we'd come when we could. What do you want? Jack kneels before me. His brothers on either side of him do the same. Noble orphan girl, we are here to beg your forgiveness for our thievery the other day. Indeed, it is crazy, boring around here, and we think it would be less boring if you were our friends and not our enemies. I stare at him, trying not to laugh. He looks so serious. Ruth peeks out from under her monster mask, she's not taken off all day. What? What are you talking about? Gretchen snaps. How do you know she's the orphan girl? We listen. Jack says matter-of-factly. You guys talk louder than you think. Plus, we're excellent spies, Cole adds. We brought cookies, Bennett announces. Cole glares at him. Gretchen perks up. Cookies? I try to remain uncompromising. 14-letter word, for I will not change my mind no matter what. You're not supposed to be over here, I say. That wasn't part of our deal. Kennedy grabs my hand and whispers, What deal, Finley? This is not cool. It's okay, Cole says quickly. We're not messing with you, promise. Kennedy, right? Kennedy puts her hands on her hips. Yeah? Yeah. I've seen you at school. He smiles a little. Hi. Great. Hi. Somebody tell me what's going on before I get Grandpa. We tell Kennedy about the wasteland, the bone house, and its graves, how the Bailey boys stole our dues, and the deal we had made to get them back. I see. One sec. Kennedy pulls me aside. Okay, this is not allowed. We're not supposed to leave the pit, and we're definitely not supposed to go back into the woods that far. And you made a deal with the Baileys? I'm sorry, it's just that we had to get our stuff back. And then the Everwoods said, Kennedy blows hair out of her face. Finley, listen. I know you've got this great imagination, and that's awesome. And I know we're supposed to let you do your thing and be super nice to you, but suddenly I feel about 5 inches tall. Who told you to be nice to me? It's no big deal. Grandma just told me. Don't be mad, okay? She just said you're kind of sensitive and to try not to upset you. Kennedy pauses, biting her lip. You know, because of the stuff with your parents? I cross my arms over my chest. Kennedy's eyes are so sweet and blue, looking at me like a worried mom, like Aunt Dee did that first night at dinner, when she seemed like she was afraid I would start crying at any second. I want to melt into the dirt. There's nothing wrong with my parents, I say quietly. Kennedy puts a soft hand on my arm. Sure, I know that. Grandma doesn't know what she's talking about, okay? Okay. Hey! Kennedy's fingers pry mine loose. Her hand squeezes mine. You all right? I squeeze her hand back and she smiles at me. If it makes you feel any better, Jack says loudly, interrupting us. We brought a few things to prove you can trust us. Cole opens his backpack and nods at Bennett, who is bouncing on his toes. Bennett pulls out a handheld telescope, a bag of cookies, 2 flashlights, and a cloth banner decorated with painted vines and leaves and huge letters that says, Welcome to the Everwood. Everyone gasps. Kennedy lets go of me to run her fingers along the banner's edge. I almost grab her hand back and then remind myself I am 11 years old and am not sensitive. I can stand here by myself like a normal person. I clench my hands into fists at my sides. Who made this? Kennedy asks. It's beautiful. Cole clears his throat and looks to the ground. I did. It took me 2 whole nights. Kennedy drops her hand. Her cheeks are red. And one more thing. Jack reaches into his own backpack and draws out a small rusted mailbox, painted with vines like the banner. A tiny flag sticks up from the top, yellow, with a green leaf painted in the center. That's the Everwood flag, Jack says proudly. Gretchen looks ready to explode. You can't just make the flag for everyone. This is our thing. Fine. We'll vote on it. And if you don't like it, I'll make another one. I figure we can put it by the river between our houses by that group of trees. Jack points down the river. It'll be good for planning things like when to meet at the Bone House to hang out. This way, your grandparents don't have to see you talking to us. Gretchen snatches up the cookies. I try to ignore how wonderful this mailbox is. Why do you want to be our friends? Our families don't like each other. Jack shrugs and shoves his hands in his pockets. I don't know. Nobody'll tell me why our families don't like each other. So I figure it's a dumb reason. And you seem fun, and it's summer, and like I said, we're bored. Bennett wipes his nose on the back of his hand and grins at me. So, orphan girl, Jack says, what do you think? Do we have a deal? When I don't answer right away, Cole says, do you always do what your grandparents tell you to do? I'm not sure how to respond. What about your parents? Do they care if they talk to us? Jack puts his hand to his heart. Alas, we have no parents. We are in the custody of a gargantuan, poisonous troll. With each word, he takes a step closer to the tower and then lunges at Dex and Ruth with his finger crooked like a pirate's hook. Dex screams. Ruth growls. Bennett stares at Ruth's masks and tugs on Jack's shirt. Jack, he whispers, I want a mask too. Gretchen remains unimpressed. You are not in the custody of a troll. What kind of troll? I ask. Jack pauses. What kind of trolls live in the Everwood? I think fast. I haven't thought about trolls being in the Everwood before. Well, they're the fell folk who have scaly hides like alligators and can swallow a deer whole. Their breath smells like 1,000 rotting corpses. Kennedy shudders. That is so gross, Finn. Oh, yeah, says Jack. The troll guarding us is definitely one of those. But we can pretty much do whatever we want as long as we don't wake him up. So, Jack puts his hand out. Do we have a deal? I gather my cousins together for a conference. Gretchen is digging into the cookies and seems happier about life in general. Finley, I don't know. Kennedy keeps looking over at the Baileys. I can't tell if she's worried or curious. How can we trust them? We just can. Why, because the Everwood said so? I will not feel embarrassed. Yes. She shakes her head sadly. Kennedy, please, don't you want to see the Bone House? It's so cool, Gretchen says, her mouth full of cookies. Like Haunted House in the movies cool? Like if a tiger and a dragon had a baby cool? I grab Kennedy's hands. Please, Kennedy. Kennedy sighs and rolls her eyes. Fine, fine. She marches over to shake Jack Bailey's hand. We have an accord, she says in an official tone of voice. And just like that, our alliance is born.